So now we're going to bring all of that together by doing these solving by completing the square steps. So here's just the list of all the steps that we're going to do to solve this, but pretty much the idea of solving by completing the square is that we take any quadratic expression and we go ahead and manipulate it to become a perfect square trinomial and then solve by square roots from there, just like we did in the first video. So first step to solving by completing the square is we're going to divide all terms of the equation by the coefficient of x squared if it is not 1. We'll go ahead and see some examples of that in the next video. Next, we're going to move c to the other side. So the equation should now look like ax or x squared plus bx equals c. Then we're going to do the actual completing the square part that we did in the previous video. We're going to take half of b, square it, and add it to both sides to get b over 2 squared plus equals c plus b over 2 squared. Next, we're going to factor the trinomial. We're going to find square roots. And then we're going to solve for x. So let's look at some examples where the coefficient is already 1. So this first one, I have x squared minus 10x plus c equals 0. My coefficient of x squared is already 1, so I don't have to worry about that. So my next step is to go ahead and move my c to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 7 to both sides. So I'm left with x squared minus 10x. I'm going ahead and leave a space because I'm going to be adding something here. It's equal to negative 7. And so what I'm going to be adding is that b divided by 2 squared. So my b here is negative 10. So I have negative 10 divided by 2 squared. Well, negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. And negative 5 squared, I get 25. So I'm adding 25 to both sides. And the reason why I did this is now I have a perfect square trinomial on the left-hand side. And so when I factor the left-hand side, I get x minus 5 squared. And then negative 7 plus 25, I get 18. And we see this minus 5 is always going to match up with this b divided by 2. And now I can go ahead and solve this by taking the square roots. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and I get x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 18, which if I were to go ahead and simplify that out, 18, that's really the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. And when you take the square root of 9, you get 3. And then I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And so I get that x is equal to 5 plus or minus 3 square root of 2. Okay, let's look at another example. Here I have x squared plus 6x minus 7 is equal to 0. First step is to go ahead and move that negative 7 to the other side by adding 7 to both sides. So I get x squared plus 6x. Leave a space because I'm going to be adding something there. It's equal to 7. Now I need to figure out what I'm adding there by completing the square. So I'm going to take my b, which is 6, and divide it by 2, and then square it. Well, 6 divided by 2, I get 3. And then 3 squared, I get 9. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. So now I have a perfect square trinomial on the left-hand side, and when I factor that, I get x plus 3 squared is equal to 7 plus 9, which is 16. And now taking the square root of both sides, I get x plus 3 is equal to the square root of 16, which is plus or minus 4. Subtract 3 from both sides. And I get that x is equal to -3 plus or minus 4. And so I really have -3 plus 4 or -3 minus 4. -3 plus 4, I get 1. -3 minus 4, I get -7. And so my two answers are x equals -7 and 1.